morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me today for a Localization Fireside Chat episode. We're close to Christmas. We're December 15th. And today's episode, today's interview, today's conversation, I am so proud and I'm so excited to have this conversation because I'm joined by a legend who has been on the Multilingual magazine numerous times. And I didn't know that until before I did some pre-work before this episode and find out the Jeff Allen is one of the, lock and roll. Like, you've got YouTube videos, you've got music. Like, I've seen people with various experience in this industry, to have it to the next level doing music about the industry. I never thought this is possible. And there you go. So I'm really excited. Jeff, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And Jeff, on this channel, we say everybody's got a story. So if you don't mind, introduce the audience to your story and to tell a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'm actually a real linguist. I'm a theoretical linguist. I did my master's, my bachelor's in French and French and phonetics and literature, but then I went into to do a master's in linguistics, in theoretical linguistics, and my doctoral work was in phonology and phonetics, so the Creole languages, the Caribbean. So, and then because that did put a lot of food on the table, and I didn't go into being a teacher. I mean, I was a teacher in the university for a while. I came in the back door through machine translation, automated translation, back 30 years ago with Caterpillar. And that opened up a lot of opportunities to work in the research and translation systems, speech systems early on, doing statistical machine translation before it was known. And working with translation memory, other different things, and then work in databases of language-based databases for the European Commission, and then working for a number of different solution providers of automated translation systems and speech systems, and now the buyer side for the past 15 years. I've actually been here for 15 years. I'm kind of amazed. Working action telecoms too. I've been in and out of the industry. When these world crises come, like 9/11 threw me out, the whole the whole crash in 2008, I had to go work in other things to put food on the table, and that's what I did. So I've worked in telecom as well, telecom systems, the handshakes of our phones and stuff, and helping the engineers for doing that. And now working at doing predictive analytics and other, SAP's got 2,000 applications, so I'm working on about 20 of them in the past 15 years. So that's kind of the overall story.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm interested in finding out what drew you to languages, initially on, at the beginning. What brought you?
I hated math. I had a bad math teacher. I had a geometry teacher that just made me hate it. And then I got out of his class and went and did algebra in 8th grade, the U.S. system to 8th year. And so I was about 12 years old. And then I wanted to do languages. So I did French and Spanish in 7th grade. Then I did math and algebra, and I said, I hate this. So in 10th grade, in high school, I went back to languages and did French the second, third, fourth year. And in the final year at high school, I was actually a grading assistant for the French and Spanish teachers. I actually got an award for my high school for being a language assistant. This is no one does this, right? They do math or other things. I did language, right? So that set me on the course. And then I had my bachelor's and my first bachelor's and my second bachelor's are in language related topics. So it went on from there. I'm doing math now. I'm doing math finally.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, when you do, you go from one side of, it's very funny, the human brain, right? So you either go, that's the general rule. You either go into literary or you go into sciences. But to see very rare that you see people that can jump between, social studies, literaries, and to science-based degrees or intellectuals. So for you, how's that? You must have a wide variety of topics.
I have an associate and a bachelor's degrees in religious texts of the historic of different religions, and so I did text analysis. But then when I did my bachelor's in French, I got to study phonetics, and I wanted to do that. And then I got sent to France for a year to teach French as a foreign language. And then I discovered linguistics in the learning, the theoretical linguistics. And from that moment on, I wanted to do phonetics. There was something about the scientific aspects of it dealing with sounds. I spend my time dealing with sounds, hearing sounds, analyzing them, and figure out the dialect differences and dialects and stuff. So that's always kind of been my passion. But I look at text too as corpora. They're just corpora of helping find things. So it's been working in the language databases, the linguistic language databases for training language technologies with Elda and Elra. It just kind of they kind of go together, So
Jeff, let's before we dive into the more serious topics, tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're located, where you grew up, and
Sure.
what's the what's the personal side of Jeff Allen look like?
Sure. Well, I was born in the United States, and I spent my early childhood years in Minnesota. There's lots of snow. Walking to school, yes, 1 mile in the snow, and wearing basically a snowsuit for 6 months of the year. And then I moved back to Oregon. I was born in Oregon, moved to Minnesota as a child, and for basically the 10 first years in Minnesota. SOTA, I should say it the real way. And then moved back to Oregon. And from basically 8 years old until 23, I lived in Oregon in the Portland area. And I was that's the headquarters of Nike and Intel in Beaverton, Oregon. And so, and then I did went to 2 different universities. I actually cleaned toilets and cleaned things. I worked hard for 8 years to fund my two different university degrees in the US. And I got sent to France on a fellowship to teach French. Came here, now I've been in France for basically 30 years. Back and forth a couple of years doing my master's at the university there. I was kind of getting sent back. I don't want to go into all the details. That's all my LinkedIn profile. But and then finally came back to France, and hey, my second master's and all my doctor work was in France. It's cheap, it's funded by taxes basically. So I ended up working here, and then went back for 4 years with my wife at the time, and then I've been back since 1999. Back in France since 1998. Actually, I live here. That's where I live, and out in the kind of the suburbs, the Fontainebleau area, the forest. So I'm out here. Next, this is the country house, right? So with the fire, so we get 70.
I know, I couldn't believe it.
So
we got to tell the audience, we're Localization Fireside Chat, and this is the first individual that we interview, the first person that we interview that we actually point the camera at an actual fireplace. It's very, very nice of you, Jeff. I mean, you're just the epitome of the fireside chat. I really love that. That's great.
Love it.
One of the things that you mentioned a little earlier, involvement into in the technology aspect of languages and how you started with statistical machine translation. You must have some unique perspective on that entire evolution from seeing it early on and seeing it now. And I'm interested in finding out, what do you think of the technology evolution, and what do you think also of the human aspect of that technology integration, that hybrid model?
Sure. I mean, this is where I spend my time. Right now I work in the artificial intelligence department of SAP, and I spend the majority of my time writing blog posts and doing videos and doing conferences on this exact topic of, what is AI and what it's not. And I spend my time telling people what it's not. And so this is it. And I've given a lot of talks, conference talks, and I've put them in the video format on my YouTube channel at Jeff Allen France, where I talk a lot about the history of translation systems and speech systems. And it goes back to the rule-based systems. I mean, that's what I was working on, 30 years ago. And then some of the early statistical systems and what we call example-based, which is translation memory. I mean, I got a lot of papers and stuff in that, but I've got them on video format. And I've seen each one. I've worked in every one, right? Every single type of translation system. We got up to the neural systems today. And I've worked with a lot of different solution providers, not just one brand, but several of them. So I've kind of seen how everyone does it and kind of walked through this whole thing of quality. What's quality? And now getting to where generative AI is now changing. It's a really game changer. It's finally come. We've been waiting for 30 years or 50 years. We've been waiting for a breakthrough to say, is this going to really change? And we've seen in the past year, since November of a year ago, that people are grabbing onto this now. It's on everywhere on LinkedIn. It's every day. It's everywhere. AI has hit it, right? And it's really about generative AI. So it's real simple. What it is we're moving from rule-based systems of tabular data, organized data in financial systems, which are, easy to code and easy to kind of replicate things, to going to a generative, more, it's learning from the data it's got. And then why we're doing it is because we need to automate and semi-automate. We can't pay for human people to do everything, every single repetitive task that hurts your hands and stuff, makes you retire early, right? So we need to automate and semi-automate, make the human brain do more things than just hit hammers and stuff and all that, right? So we're finding ways to, or doing, data entry, all that. So we're trying to find ways to make that semi-automation, process in place, but not replace people completely. It's make them use their brains more, right? So, and then how we're doing it is pretty simple. We need to make it's the whole 3 R's in AI. We're making things relevant. So we're making sense relevant to each domain. It's reliable data because we allow hallucinations, right? And we're making it responsible. We need to do this in a responsible way so that we don't tell people we're going to replace you. We're going to boost your productivity and make you use your brain a little bit more, right? So that's the what, the why, and the how of this whole technology. And we're seeing language at the middle of this right now, right? Large language models. We're talking about this all over the place. Language is the key right now, whether it be textual data, audio data, or visual data, to be able to kind of break through the usage of the technologies as a tool. That's what it's all about. And that's why I spend my time talking about it.
And we talk on this channel a lot about AI as it impacts language industry in general. But, one thing I keep reminding people, and I should probably remind people more, is AI not just impacting language industry, it's impacting every single industry globally. It is so massive that if you're not in it, you're missing the boat. At least learn it. At least find out what can it do to your job, to your business, to as a consumer, to how you consume things, services or goods. It's impacting every single angle of our lives. And it's going to increase. I was talking to somebody on this channel as well. We were talking about, like back in you and I, like you mentioned, back in the days kind of thing. So back in the days, and I'm a computer science, that's how I started my career as a technologist. We used to talk about development cycles, that they're about a year. Every year you release a new piece of software or you update your software. Today, the development cycle is counted in days, even weeks in some cases, then that's too late in some cases. So the acceleration of development is driving brand new ideas to hit the market and quickly, fast. And if we don't keep up, we don't know what's coming around the corner and you're left in the dust kind of thing. So where we are right now in terms of going back to language, the language industry, in terms of the consumer of content of those tools, AI-based tools, are trusting. And I hear a lot of talks about trust. Are we at a phase right now where sort of like we're open to ideas, but we don't know yet if we can trust? Or are we in a phase, and I'm talking in general here, in a phase where we trust and verify, or we trust?
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing about the trust is people are scared, right? A lot of things are built on fear. And a lot of times I say, we come back to the point too, we said that it's not, the statement is, it's not AI that will replace you. It's a human, a person using AI, the tool that will replace you. And people that adopt the technology early on and do it, and I've been doing that for 30 years, right? I'm able to do more. And so that's the key is learning to use a tool as a tool, right? It's not the technology, it's not the cyber thing doing this stuff. It's you using the tool to be able to do more in that. So that's a key thing. And that whole question about generative AI right now is there are a lot of hallucinations, and they're called confabulations, right? There's a new word for this. And it's based on the fact of how you train the data. And if you don't have enough data that's diverse, then it's going to be training on only certain data, right? And we can see the whole thing, male-dominated generative AI. It's a lot of things that the data that's being trained on has been forced on looking at male-focused societal content that will generate male-dominant content, right? And so it's trying to have the diverse data that covers all different domains and all different, focal points of everything we can imagine. It's diversity, inclusion, right? And when we can do that, then it makes it easier, right? So we need to find ways to have the data to train on. We can generate that automatically too, right? We can generate that kind of data and make it available. So that's kind of the key thing is our challenge is how to do this, because there aren't data warehouses for this stuff, right? And the hardest thing here of this reliable data is, in the past, I did a conference talk on this last week about financial data. Financial data historically has been used as financial databases, right? Bank databases and things, doing for predicting budgets and then looking backward on the budget of the year and forecasting the future years. It's all in a single database, right? But now you get information press releases. That's all in this information that analysts think about. We imagine we can actually go out and scrape the internet, find all the press releases, analyzing each company, all that, and analyze that and use that to help provide a proposal of prediction, right? That's the key. And we aren't there yet because it's a non-organized data. Tabular data is organized, right? It's all easy to code, but it's unorganized, non-engineered data that's our challenge. And we're scraping that, right? So this is the key: is how can we make that data reliable or validated, right? And that's where that's where you need people involved, because the tabular data is simple, right? You always clean up, you make a fix, and then you make a fix in that little box there or something, that cell, and it fixes it. But how you analyze, LinkedIn profiles, analyze press releases, and all this, that's subject to all kinds of interpretation, and that's why you need the people to be able to check and say that's not true, right?
That's right. And you know what? You bring up a very good point there, Jeff, because like the rest of us, I guess I have many conversations during the day and talk to various people about this particular topic. And, the common theme that I'm hearing through, if I analyze my conversation is, well, I tried ChatGPT and, it's garbage. I didn't like the output. I'm trying to translate to French and it didn't like it. Well, it's like go and say, oh, okay, I'm going to go to my local supermarket. I'm going to buy the food. I'm going to eat it while I'm on my way home. I didn't like the taste of it. Well, you didn't cook this stupid thing.
I spend a lot of time talking to a lot of people that are not in the language industry, right? So I tell my bosses I speak 5 to 10 times a week on the topic. I can talk about retirement homes, right? I mean, talking anywhere. And the whole key of this is really touching the entire world, right? But the focal point that we're dealing with here is that we are getting to a point where we're not able to, let's see how to do this here. We're trying to move ahead and dealing with this data. A lot of things we do, we're analyzing. A human being is actually analyzing and filtering the information, right? And we need to teach a machine how to do that. And the only way you can do that is help the machine learn from what we've been doing as we do it regularly in filtering conversations. We decide if the information is real or not based on their conversation with the person, right? And the machine can't do that right now because it doesn't know our social. We have a social history. Our brain has learned from experiences, right? And the computer isn't able to do that yet because it doesn't know all these. 1 + 1 = 2 for a computer, right? But really, for a human being, 2 + 2 = 5 because we get the social experience that the computer doesn't have, and that's our challenge right now, is getting that point, and that's hard. That's hard to do that.
But it's now that we are in the era where we are in, I think the fundamental infrastructure is in place already to make use of what we know as a human being and teach it to the neural side of the language models. Statistical, did not have that capability, but that ability to learn, that ability to be taught as a technology. And so the onus becomes on us to be teaching those models or these algorithms, things that are comply with us or mirror what we want to do, satisfy a job. And there's a lot of discussion, and I see that you're involvement in ethical AI as well. So there is a lot of discussions, especially and I don't know, I haven't seen it much of it yet in the language industry. I've seen it, but not to the extent of I see it in other industry. For instance, the financial sector right now, it's big on ethical use of AI, because theoretically, and just theoretically, you can really have fun with AI when it comes to stock trading, when it comes to predicting the market, up or down, etc. So any thoughts on ethical use of AI from your experience?
That was the 3 R's of my how, right? The how.
That's right.
And how we're using AI is 3 R's. And 3 R's not, it's something that comes out of that ethics. It's you want to make sure that your data is reliable or is relevant. Everything you're doing is relevant to use cases and business scenarios and industry scenarios or whatever scenarios you want to call them. SAP call it business AI. It's just SAP. It's business AI for business, right? But you can do AI for business. You can do it industry. You can do it for academics. You can do it for research. You can do it for all automotive. You can each domain. You can say it's relevant to that domain or sector or whatever you want to call it, right? Then you want to see your data is reliable, and it's how much data you have and how good is it for that relevant area and domain, right? So that's the whole thing. If you train it on generic stuff, then you're going to get generic stuff, right? Vanilla flavored AI. And this is the problem of we're coming back to that question right now of how relevant it is. It's because if you train on stuff that's too focused or too general, it's not going to hit what your answers are, right? And that's where I talk to a lot of doctors. The doctors, medical doctors, when they ask questions, it's very specific because they're able to pinpoint what they're looking for. If you ask the prompt very specific questions, you're going to get very specific answers. If you say, what's the length of a string, it's not going to know, right? So it's how fine-tuned your questions are, your prompts, your prompts are doing it. So that's the kind of the data side that's reliable data. And the third one is responsible. How you're using this tool and what you're doing with it, how you're using it is going to determine, are you trying to replace people or are you trying to boost their productivity, right? And so I'll say, my key thing I'd say is, look back in the barcodes, right? We said 40 years ago, I remember because I had a roommate who was in college, and he could do a 10 key punch, right? Codes. He could only one product at a time, right? But he could do it really fast. But then we put in the barcodes about 30 years ago, right? And you had to have a scanner that was above the product. You had to, in the big packs of water, you couldn't send them through because it was too big, right? And then what it has, you create a bunch of people on roller skates to go find the information in the aisle to find the right number, right? And so you had all these skaters that were actually costing more money because the insurance to have them, you can collide with people in the aisles, right? So they were actually cost more, but they were getting the information, bring it back on roller skates. Now they're on walkie-talkies, right? Or phones, mobile phones, right? Then we got it. So you can have a little pointer. You can actually decide that you don't have to put the big water. You can keep it in the cart and caddy, and you can point it and do it. So we're getting more products running through the cash register, right, with the barcodes, and we're getting to the point now we have automatic check out yourself. But there are people sitting there manning these things, right? Or manning. I'm sorry. What's the word for manning? Womaning.
Let's use the word peopling things.
People. And I talk to these people. They're unblocking the system because you're buying some wine. It's when you're 18 years old, right? Or 21 or whatever age. And so what we're doing is we've moved the cash register. They put up the cash registers. We don't have to have the 10 key punch speed anymore. It's just they have to unblock. One time there's a product going to run through, they have to do the key, but you don't have to do it fast. But you got so many products coming through of it, right? So many barcodes that the goal now is you got more people out in the aisles putting the stuff up. They're taking the stock, moving into the aisles, putting up on the shelves and stuff. That's where the new workforce is. It's displacing the workforce. It hasn't remove the workforce. It's changed the skills and do it so you can put more products through, which is gaining more money for, whatever, and you can hire more people, right? That's right. So this is one example, right?
And ladies and gentlemen, like what Jeff is alluding to, or as it applies to our language industry, is look, there is a huge amount of surge in content development. Everybody now is a content creator, and that content needs to be translated. Eventually, it needs to be translated. Some content may not be realized now that need to translate it, but every content is produced to a purpose, and that purpose is for consumer to consume the content. Eventually, the consumer of that content is going to say, well, it's not in my language. I can't consume it. Please make it into my language. And then when you have 50% increase in your content development, we don't have 50% increase in translators. The delta has to be filled by a technology that allows us to do more with the amount of people we currently have and we're going to have in the future. So again, I'm with you, Jeff. It is not again, like people missing the boat on this one. It is not to replace the human, but we want to make the human. I mean, I'm still involved in conversation where people tell me, well, the standard of production per translator per day is 2,000 words.
2,500 words per day.
I'm thinking like, where do you live? Under the stone somewhere? These things needs to be like in 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 per day, not 2,000 per day. And we have to produce them at a quality. That's why the training is important. No cutting corner with technology. And you're right. You bring up a very good, important point here. People also missing the point on data. It is about data. It's about training the engines into the right data. And if you don't have the data, there's data warehouses that sells you the data. The data can be acquired, but you need to train. You cannot open the box like you buy it from Amazon. Buy it from Amazon, exactly. Open the box, plug it in, it works. It is not an Amazon purchase. You have to train the data. You have to train it on a specific data that makes sense.
Yeah. It's and we've been saying this since the statistical emission translation days, right? It's having the right data, and we didn't know how much it was, and we're getting better and better at it. But the whole key here, it's not just the number of people, the resources, it's the budget. We can have 30, 40, 50% more requests for translation per year. We're not going to have 30% more budget per year, right? So we're trying to balance the keeping the budget as it is, or the little bit extra you get, with the number of requests coming in, to balance it off and say, well, how much can we do with that same amount of budget or a little bit more, right? Because we're not going to increase it. You cannot, a PM you cannot convince the client to get 50% more budget for the year, right? They're going to get 3% more, right?
And Jeff, I feel like, and I have several examples of this. I feel like this idea has been long coming. I feel because there was a bottleneck in terms of global industry, of language industry, in terms of production. And I feel like, I don't know if anybody talks about it more often. I'd love to have your opinion on this one. I feel like most of these ideas, they don't come from the industry. They come from outside the industry, and it's imposed on the industry. And the industry now have to react. So we're always in that reactionary mode. And since you've been in telecom, you can also relate to when telecom was going through the transformation. It did not happen from within the telecom industry. It came from the outside. And then the telecom industry has to react to it.
Yeah. I mean, the majority of my ideas, I come up with years ago as innovative in the language industry, 30 years ago, right? The last 20 years have been replicating it, right, in different fields. And it was really the telecom industry, the whole architecture of working on R&D of bug tracking systems and test tracking systems and backlog systems and stuff, been working on in software industry, that have taught me or helped me bring other things into the language industry that I would not have had if I'd stayed in the industry. And I think one of our problems is that there are very few people that have worked out of the industry, that have gone out, and very few that come back in. I keep coming back in, right? And I meet with a few people from time and say, hey, you're one of those people, right? There are lots of people that have stayed in the industry, in the language industry for so long, they've been accustomed to the pricing model and all that, and they're all stuck in this pricing thing. They're all stuck in the whole dilemma of that. And really, if you think out of the box and say, well, how can we bring other things that we're seeing outside into that? That's what we're seeing right now with generative AI in the past year, right? It's really, that's right. Now we're seeing it. And now every industry has to kind of deal with this. Finance, utilities, gas, whatever. Every industry is being impacted. They have to think out of the box. And that's right. The language industry is now kind of stuck in that. We're focused on it right now. How can we do it like the others are experiencing, right?
Yeah, you're right. You bring up the budget is very important too, because actually, I was listening to Bill Maher. I probably should not be saying his name on this channel, but I'll say it anyway. Bill Maher the other day, actually this morning, and he was talking about Mr. Beast, that YouTube personality who's got like billions of viewers, etc. So it just kind of reminded me, because there was an article, remind me about him, because there was an article on Slater, which people can find it still, where Mr. Beast wanted to translate his videos or localize his videos. And he had an issue with the industry, was not localizing it on his budget, on his time, etc. So what did the guy do? Went and opened his own company using AI. Like, are we driving people nuts to a point where they're devising their own solution now? Or, this is where our industry is like, of course, you're going to have 2 or 3 categories of the industry. You're going to have the people that they're going to be innovative. They're going to be always looking for things better to do or to perform their job. We're always going to have those customers that says, well, look, I want to get it done the old artisan fashion way. I want to see the translator. I want him to come to my office. I want to take him pencil and
translate, edit, proof, the cycle,
That's right? That's right. You want to do that? Fine. There are people that can help you with that. But the majority of the market, the new generation, the Gen Z, this is where we missing the boat. The buyers are changing. The buyers are not like your 60, 70-year-old people that you worked with, decades ago. The buyers are brand new buyers. I've got many people saying, "Where's the app? How can I download it?" Like it's pretty amazing. We're not in tune with our buyers. And I remember my first Loc World event I went to, and I think that was the last one I went to. I went to one only. I don't know, maybe it set me in the wrong direction, but here you go, here I am now. And I heard the discussions around that, and I came from the telecom industry. I was in the telecom industry before I joined this industry. So I heard the first conversations I'm hearing is like, nobody's talking about the customer. Everybody's talking about, how do I manipulate a file, or, how come I'm not producing, this with this? Like, I'm thinking, like, where is the customer in this entire equation? Like, the conversation should be around the customer. What are we doing with the customer? What does the customer want? How are they behaving? How are they buying from us?
You've hit on the topic of my new video book. It's for free on YouTube. I talk about quality, and I've been saying since 2014, stop talking about quality. Stop talking about quality. Stop talking quality, because everyone in this industry on their LinkedIn profiles is quality. We don't know what quality is, right? I mean, it's just, you don't know what it is. And I hear so many discussions about blue and all these scores and that's not what quality is, right? It all comes down to, I learned it from the telecom industry, quality of service, right? And the hotel, I worked in hospitality and in these industries, quality is based on knowing what the customer wants, right? And when you know what the customer wants, you're going to respond to those questions that they want. And if we overestimate, we over-engineer quality by thinking what we think the customer wants, by doing too much, right? And my whole video book on my YouTube channel is I'm trying to find a better name for it, but it's quality assessment or quality evaluation based on sales and customer experience. That's the key. Right. And it goes against the grain of all my engineering experience, because I'm saying I learned to figure out what the customer wants, and I'm going to respond to that. And I'm not going to do more than they ask for, unless they ask for more, then you charge them more. Right?
That's right. We cannot over-engineer this. I mean, we live in an economy right now globally, and not just like in North America. Everybody's feeling the same. You cannot over-engineer anything. You cannot over-engineer a car. You cannot over-engineer a bridge. You have to engineer it to the specification of what the customer wants or needs now. And nobody, and I don't know if it's true or not, but some people feel like they should be the authority on translation. When I give you my passport to be translated to another language, somebody needs to stamp it and put their name on it because the government wants to make sure that this passport is good. That's not what we're talking about. This is completely different discussion than translating a passport. This is, of course, that's still needed, and there's notaries that will do that for you, or translators that they're certified or notarized that will do that for you. But what we're talking about right now is massive amount of volume of content that needs to be translated. We cannot be the judge of the translation. We can to some extent and deem it necessary, but the ultimate judge for that translation or that language delivery model that we're using is the consumer. Did the consumer work with it? And the other thing that people like, I don't know if you're coming into those discussions is did the content that you create, and that's the question that everybody's wrestling with, has achieved its goal? And what was that goal of the content?
Exactly. Purpose-driven. It's purpose-driven. That's the whole thing. I've been saying for like 15 years, right? And I'll cite Kurt Godden. Kurt Godden and Linda Means worked at General Motors back in the late 90s on control language, right? And automated translation, all that. And Kurt gave a talk at the Society for Automotive Engineering, the top tech in Amsterdam in 1999. I was there. And he said, he worked in the General Motors, right? So automotive. He went to an automotive event, right? And he was looking at the new cars, and he saw some new car in another model, another brand, right? And he says he looked at this the kind of the beginner pricing, right? This car, and he says the doors on the inside were too perfect. They were too perfect. They did the inside seams of the doors too well. They over-engineered the car so that the cost of the car was too expensive for the price that the consumer wants to buy, right? And that's over-engineering. And that was what in 1999, this is over-engineering. And what we do is we over-engineer the quality of the translation we do, and we make it too expensive. And then we wonder why the customers don't buy it, right?
So, I'll tell you a little anecdote to make you laugh a little bit. When I first started with the industry 20 years ago, everybody was, we were working from an office, cubicles and et cetera. So this manager walked into one of the translator who's translating a document, and the manager says, and I was walking in the hallway, so I overheard it. He said, "Hey, Picasso, painting the Mona Lisa took a long time. I want you to paint the same Mona Lisa
faster,
and
less expensive, less internal cost, right?"
That's right.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly it.
So yeah. I mean, we all agree, and I feel like I'm enjoying this conversation so much. I'm probably going to let it go for 2 hours, but this is great conversation. Yeah. I don't know why, but I feel like I've worked with you before. I've met you before. I don't know. We seem to be on the same wavelength in terms of thinking. So, no,
well,
I appreciate it.
I was going to check my LinkedIn profile to see when we actually connected for the first time. I haven't done that yet, but I'm sure it was at least 15 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
At least 15 years ago, because you were one of my first people, right? And
yeah,
I get 11,000 contacts, but I get 11,000 with 30% are recruiters, right? I got 30% of my people are recruiters. I always have 20,000 each, right? So and I've been following you for 15 years, right? Everything you're doing, I'm watching. I get spammed with all the posts, right? So I'm looking at them and seeing what you're doing, what you're talking about, what you're doing, and you're covering a wide range of things, right? Because your background, right? You're not focused on only this thing, only talking about production, right? And all that. You're looking at the big picture, right? And so
like this afternoon, for instance, I'm recording another episode this afternoon. This is the translator's perspective. So I'm interviewing a translator. I want to know, what are they thinking? Like, how are they seeing all this, and how are they adapting to it? So yeah, you're right. I mean, I try to cover, because there's many angles that you can look at this, at any topic. And the danger is, if you concentrate too much on one angle, then you become, from an opinion perspective, you become very polarized to that particular opinion. And I don't want to do that. Yeah, one of the things that I'm really interested in, and I hope you can do me this favor. I heard you sing about localization, and I know your nickname was Lock and Roll. In one of the episodes of one of the issues of Multilingual Magazine, they nicknamed you Lock and Roll. Is there a way that you can just one verse or two verse, you can belt them out right now, or am I putting you on the spot? I don't care about what they sound like.
I did with Tony O'Dowd. Tony O'Dowd, he's a musician too. The Catalyst, Alchemy Catalyst, beginning right now. He works on the Canton NT, right? And he and I did a music. We did it in 2015 for ELIA, the European Language Industry Association. I wanted to do a concert at there, and we get to actually sing at Bocuse in France, right? This is the best restaurant in France, the best restaurant. So I was trying to find a way to sponsor the conference. I said, let's create a groove sponsor, right? And so I already had invented the word guilty giggers, right? GILT, guilty giggers. So I created that brand name. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I tried to find a bunch of musicians to kind of want to do the guilty. We played industry events, right? And one or two. Then we called ourselves at this Bocuse restaurant in LA in 2015. We called ourselves the Bilingual Busking Buddies. And so we actually played.
I love it.
We created a menu, a musical menu. We told everybody we will do live karaoke, and we actually did it at the event. We were participants. We were conference, speakers too, and we did the musical things, and it was just the whole evening we were doing this, and we videoed it. Some of it we did, record some of it. And I get up on my YouTube channel, calling ourselves the Bilingual Busking Buddies and the Guilty Giggers, right? And we did a T-shirt and everything. So it's just like it was hilarious. Right? Hold on, once for a second. Get a call coming in. Decline that call. Decline the call.
That's all right. That's okay. Hey, can I ask you to, sing a couple of verses, or maybe a verse or two?
I'll tell you what that is. So I created, what I do is I reword songs, right? I re-lyric them. And so I took Toto's Hold the Line and I re-lyriced it I have 5 different versions that I've done. And one's called Hold Your Words.
Hold Your Words. That's great.
I hold your words. So I got 5 different versions in 5 different industries, but one called the translation industry called Hold Your Words, right?
Okay.
And I can't remember the words because I don't memorize any of the songs I do. I have a PowerPoint that I do it, but it's up on my YouTube channel on Jeff Allen France.
Do you mind if we remix it into, if you don't want to sing it now, that's fine, but we can remix it into the,
the video.
Yeah,
I can mix it in. So I did a professional version of it, right? I did a professional recording video, and I did it. It's up on my YouTube channel. I'll give the link to it. And so I've done Hold Your Words, and I have another one at for the we call it the men's camp. I mean, we had a group in France, or no, in Europe. All the localization men wanted to create a men's camp at one of the guys' places, and I created Hold Your Beer.
Hold Your Beer.
I have a version of Hold Your Beer in the localization industry for men, and I have Hold Your Words, right? So I have 2 different versions of this thing, right? So, so I re-lyric songs. I did one called Wham! Last Christmas, I gave him my heart.
Yeah.
Now with this one, I re-lyriced it. It's last conference, I gave him my thoughts, but the very next week transferred to a geek. Next year, change me for years, I'll give them. And I made the whole, and I talked about once bitten and twice shy. I keep my TMs, but you're something to catch my eye, something like a billion words. I re-lyric the whole thing. It's in the same meter, the same stuff. It's just a few different words, right? It's all up on my LinkedIn. Well, I'll give you the links to these things. So
yeah, I really appreciate it. No, this is very fun. I tell you, like, I could talk to you for a couple of days. Like, I feel like this is a very interesting conversation. Yeah. I feel like I'm in my comfort zone here when I'm talking to you. And I just feel like one of these days I'm going to meet you in person. I do have a conference coming up in May. I'm the president of the Canadian Language Industry Association.
Right.
We have a conference coming up in May. Maybe I'll invite you to perform. That's it. One of those,
I love the last Christmas one. We're ready to do it, right? So, hey, and now I've gone in the last year. I've actually gone to more portable. I've actually got you're going to laugh here. I've got a ukulele bass guitar here. It's a small little bass guitar. And I've gone to a small. It's a bass guitar that's this size, a ukulele size. And I have
a bass guitar.
It's a bass guitar with rubber strings, and you can amp it. And then you can laugh here. I've got here my new drum kit. It's no longer a drum kit anymore. It's this. You can laugh at this. It's an ergonomic keyboard. This is a drum kit.
No way.
You play it left, yes, and it's so cool. It's just, this is crazy. I just go like this, but turn the thing on, and I can play the drums with this thing, right?
Oh wow, amazing!
This, and I have a foldable keyboard I can fold up to the rehearsals.
You're literally a one-man band, man.
I'm a one-man band. I have a looper. I'm working on working so I could actually do songs. I've picked songs like English in New York, Zombie, a few songs. And Journeys, Don't Stop Believing, that they repeat themselves, so I can actually do little measures and loop them all in and create the song. Do it in front of people and then just show it, right?
Oh man, you make language fun. How's that?
It's fun. It's fun. And you make language fun. Now. I can carry the things, all these little. I don't have to bring carts anymore. I can have everything in like one, on a couple backpacks and stuff, and it's all portable, right? So
excellent.
I get other instruments in the room up there, but I'm not going to go get them. Right? My amps are battery powered. Everything's battery powered. We said this in the Lock and Roll issue of Multilingual in 2023 in January, and we said I'm the battery rechargeable musician. Right? All my instruments are rechargeable. Everything's rechargeable, and if I don't have like my pedals or my mixing board, I don't have it. I have a power station that can actually charge it. Right? I recharge the power station. So I can go anywhere, and I have things in my car. My back of my car, the trunk is a music studio.
Oh my God!
And I can go anywhere and play a concert, right?
Man, you're a man of multi-talent. I am amazed, and I'm so honored to be with you today. I really appreciate it, Jeff. And I want to take the moment here to thank you for taking your time. A man with such talents and experience and expertise. I am really, truly honored to have grateful to have been, talking to you for almost an hour, and I didn't feel like an hour. And I hope the audience, when they listen to this, they appreciate it as much as I appreciate it. And they get excited about this conversation as much as I am excited about this conversation. Yeah. So thank you again for being part of this conversation, Jeff. And any last thoughts or words before we adjourn?
Yeah, I mean, the whole AI topic, it's like COVID, right? Everyone became an expert in mask. Everything's a mask, right? And I see a lot in every industry, including this industry, of people are becoming the experts in AI, right? A lot of enthusiasts, but then it gets down to is, do people really know what they're talking about? You know, really, 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 really know about it and having done it. And I kind of, in the past, I think 20 years, I've learned to talk about things I know and don't talk about things I don't know about, right? And refer to people.
That go for everybody, by the way.
And I do a lot of things. I've learned a lot of things, right? But I've learned to, and I told my boss, I don't talk about things I don't know. You know, I will refer to someone else. And I encourage all of us to make sure that when you talk about it, because it will become known, right? You know, if you know what you're talking about or not. And if you really know the topic, somebody asks you a really hard question, right? So, you know, this is something we need to be careful of in every industry we work in, right? To talk about what you know and be careful of what you don't know. Or there's somebody else that knows it better, right? So absolutely, that keeps us humble.
So, yeah, and so you know, on this note, I really want to thank you again, Jeff, for coming online here with me today and putting this episode of the Localization Fireside Chat together. Appreciate it, and I feel like with the fireplace and everything. So I really appreciate the effort to set up your studio there in your home in France. I really appreciate that. Also, if you're ever in North America or if I'm ever in France, I will look you up. I want to meet you in person. This is a shame that we have not met yet over the past 15 years. This is a crime almost. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I never get budget to travel, right? That's why I do this.
That's right. I mean,
I don't worry about that. I don't ask for budget to go to conferences anymore. I say, don't worry about it. You don't have to reimburse me and stuff. I'll make sure that I get there with the music, right? So
that's right. That's right. You find a way to do it. Excellent. I found a way to do it. So thanks again. I'm going to stop the recording here, and I really appreciate you coming online, Jeff, with me today. I wish you all the best, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and to your loved one. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me.